please let me know. Can you please switch your phones to silent for the duration of the meeting? There's remembering to put his own favour on stuff. I'll announce the agenda item and then the planning officer will introduce the application with any relevant updates since the report and provide a visual presentation for the to aid the members' understanding of the application, its content. I'll then call on the public speakers in order to present in accordance with our public speaking arrangements, which are as published. I'll then ask members and officers if they only wanted clarification on points raised by the speakers. We'll then ask any technical questions of the officers. The committee will then discuss and debate the application, during which we can seek further points of clarification from officers regarding the application, or on points raised by our speakers in the main debate through me. Officers will respond to issues and questions raised by members, and then we'll take a committee decision by vote. I have no public speakers. The apologies I'm aware of Mike Best, Jason Baker, who's joined us online, but can't vote. Gordon Patrick, Jen Kenton and Jenny Snell. Are there any other apologies?
Jenny Kenton.
Jenny Kenton, yes, I have Jenny Kenton. And I think Mike's online. The first item is number 5 on the agenda, which is the planning application 21-00311 out, land to the north of Somerton Road, adjacent to the White Bungalow, Somerton, Langport. Oh, sorry, quick Bob, before we move on, can I ask, have you all had a chance to review the minutes of the previous meeting? Is it wish to assign those as the true record? Agreed. Thank you. And are there any declarations of interest other than those which are on the public record? No? Right, so we can move on to the planning application.
Thank you, Chair. This is an outline application with all matters reserved apart from access. It is proposed to provide 35% of the dwellings as affordable housing, which is policy compliant. All sketch plans showing layout and landscaping are indicative only and will be subject to a further reserved matters application. This is the site with Langport to the left, Worm to the north, Kelway's development to the west of Worm Lane, which runs along here, and Somerton Road to the south. The Bartlett Elms here, and Brooklands Road development to the south. White Bungalow on the corner. This division in the land follows an historic boundary and separates land in different ownership. This is an old aerial photo that shows the historic division of the land. It's along here and here. This is zoomed in on the site. White Bungalow here, Somerton Road, and Lime Lane in here. This is an aerial photograph of the site. Again, Warren Lane running down here, round about Somerton Road along here, White Bungalow just there. And again, zoomed in as well. This is the site layout. I'll return to this later, but just to give you the context for the photographs, which I'll run through. This is the roundabout, and the photographs I've taken are along this stretch of road here. This is a photo of the site in here, the roundabouts behind, Bartlett Elms on the right hand side. It's a photograph of the site with white bungalow to the rear and iron to the left. So moving along the road towards the site. Site's in this area here, and dog legs behind white bungalow. Again, another view of the site. Site runs roughly along this line here and round, dog legging behind us, behind the white bungalow. This is the boundary of the site. This is a marker post that marks the boundary between the site. It runs along this way. Around there and comes around the back of white bungalow. The access point is roughly in this area here. Over the site, nearer to the edge of the boundary, which runs along here. I'm not sure if you can make it out, but there's telegraph poles which are the northern part of the site. Runs around here. And again, the access point is fairly central within the site. This is us now standing on the edge of the site, which follows the line along here, around the back. And this is the site generally. We're in the distance here. Right on the edge of the site, follows it down, around the back, and we're there. This is standing on the edge of the site, looking back the way. This is the Carlyle's development on the edge here. Looking completely across the site. This is the site here, running around here, and that is Wern in the distance there. And another view of the site. The site. This is the garage, the white bungalow. Site runs up, running behind here, and then across. Again, one in the background. The field from the existing site access. White bungalows on the right hand side, Kelways to the left, one to the rear. And again, looking back over the site, access point is roughly in this area here. This is an indicative master plan showing the potential layout of the site. It shows a central spine road with spurs coming off. This such feature, the sense is incorporated into the road layout, making it an attractive feature. And the open space and play area at the top right. Site layout indicates that up to 100 dwellings can be comfortably accommodated on the site, leaving room for open space. There is sufficient separation distances between neighbouring residential properties not to impact their privacy and amenity. The open space officer has commented that this open space would be better centrally located. This is something that can be designed into the scheme at reserve matter stage. The site is highly visible along Somerton Road, along this stretch of Somerton Road here, and along Warren Lane. The indicative layout shows landscaping along the frontage and down the boundaries, which will soften visually the appearance of the dwellings. However, in the short term, it will be obvious. There are no nearby listed buildings that would be impacted. Southwest Heritage Trust have indicated that trial trenches indicate the evidence of Roman occupation and has requested a condition that ensures watching and recording during the construction period in compliance with the scheme of investigation. As mentioned, this is indicative with the only fixed aspect being the access, which is taken centrally in the site here. Road's access is through a single point in the hedge stroke wall. It's proposed to remove 8 metres of the hedge wall to create the access and provide visibility. The Highway Authority have not objected to the proposal and have recommended conditions and that the travel ban to be secured by a Section 106 agreement. This is an extract from the adopted local plan showing policy LMT2, direction of growth. These red lines show the extent of the growth area. This red line, which I've superimposed, is the proposed site. The policy specifically seeks to maintain separation from the village of Wern along to the north here. The site does not extend further north than the indicative lines shown on the direction of growth. So approximate 250 metres separation distance is maintained, which is considered sufficient to prevent coalescence. Key considerations for the committee to take in account is that the principle of development is established by the adopted local plan policy LMT2, direction of growth, to subject to non-coalescence with Wern to the north. The site is highly visible from the main Somerton Road for approximately 300 metres and 200 metres along Wern Lane. Phosphate mitigation solution involves Avery's fitting of water-saving devices to its portfolio of housing within the catchment area. This strategy has been approved by Natural England and the Council and to be secured by a Section 106 agreement. All technical consultees have responded positively. The Highway Authority have not objected to the proposal, subject to conditions and a Section 106 to secure a travel plan. On this basis, it is recommended to the committee that the application be approved, subject to conditions, and a Section 106 agreement to secure phosphate mitigation, provision of affordable housing, highway infrastructure works, education contributions, travel plan, management of public open space, NHS contributions, all set out in the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Unsurprisingly, I have a large number of speakers listed for this application. I think the first is Si Price, who's in the Johnson. Mr. Price, we have 3 minutes. Oh, I need to press the red button. Press the. Thank you.
There's a reason for a local plan, and that is to balance development with local resources. We have grossly exceeded the local plan in terms of house building in this area. And we now see the overcapacity, the overusage of all of the resources within the area, including the roads and the environment. And the overstretched resources include Langford surgery, the educational facilities, of which the documents, the planning document states that local education need investment of £1.25 million to accommodate the children likely to be in the 100 house development. We've also lost all of our national health dentistry in the area. The Wirn is surrounds the field in question. And if you look at the map that the speaker was saying about the north and the west of the area, in the east of the area, there's a lane that runs down the other side of the field. And to the east of that is Wirn, and including the quackery that's known and its land extends north to the other houses in that area of Weir. And the boundary between the proposed site and the quackery is less than 50 metres. Now, I call that coalescence, and I consider that to be unacceptable. So that is a lot of objections have been raised about this development by Jewish Episcopal Parish Council, Langport Town Council, and the Higham Parish Council, also the Campaign for Rural. And the comments left on the planning website have been 95% objective to this development. So there's a lot of local opposition to this development. And to go beyond the plan, which we already have done, and to go yet again beyond the plan for housing stock would be an unacceptable development, particularly as this is on productive agricultural land. What we should be doing is developing on brownfield sites close to centres of employment, because this area is not a high employment area. It involves commuting, and it's unacceptable. We've also lost our bus service. Our bus service has reduced to 1 every 2 hours, and it's in threat of being removed completely. And we're now seeing gridlock frequently in Langport. So I would urge this to be refused, this planning commission.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask all speakers to try and keep to the 3 minutes, because if you take longer, somebody else can't say what they need to say, and they have a very important point. Sorry, can I ask all speakers to keep to your 3 minutes, because if you take longer, you may be taking up time for somebody who's got a really important planning point that actually helps your case. You wouldn't want to be using up their time. The next speaker I have is Val Saunders. That's when we get.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Val Saunders. I am a resident of Jewish Episcopal. I'm going to rattle on through this and basically reading what I've written, because I'm aware of what you've just said about 3 minutes. How will I know that 3 minutes is up? Anyway, I have a general concern about the lack of notice of this meeting. It was being given at very short notice from parish councils, and much has moved on since comments were first invited in early 2021. Langport, which many of you will know, is the host of the majority of services in this area, and its town council has not been consulted, but my friend over there will speak on Langport's behalf. I have 4 specific points to make. One is the need. I remain unconvinced of the need for dense developments of this nature, especially in rural areas, in the face of UK population projections for the not too distant future. Some of you will remember the name Chris Whitty, I'm sure. His annual report as Chief Medical Officer for 2023 says, the geography of older age in England is already highly skewed away from large urban areas towards more rural, coastal and other peripheral areas, and will become more so. We're not talking about the dim and distant. The ONS data relating to 2043 projects most coastal and rural areas of England will have 25% or more of older adults, and currently insufficient infrastructure to cope. I'm going to read you just the section of the report very quickly. since geographical concentration of older adults is so clearly.
You have 1 minute left.
Oh, God. Okay, I read you, can we all read his report? It's 276 pages in its full length. But there's an executive summary. My second point is, well, I lost my second point, flooding. The planning officer's report states that the site in question with controls in place will not be subject to flooding. The original application document states the development is not within 20 metres of a watercourse. I dispute that, but I didn't have my tape measure when I went out and measured the footpaths alongside that development, which, in case I don't have time to tell you, is only 90 centimetres wide going down. I believe at the eastern front edge of the site, the eastern front said.
That's your 3 minutes. I'm afraid. Sorry. The,
Traffic and transport is going to be addressed elsewhere. I urge you
you've
to
had
think
your 3 minutes.
this
Can
is
you leave
more
the time to
harm
other speakers?
than benefit, okay?
The next speaker I have down is Megan Rossiter. Who I believe is speaking on behalf of our group.
My name is Megan Roster and I am Abberley Housing Association's planning manager. I'm speaking before you this afternoon in support of the application because Abberley is seeking to acquire this site to develop ourselves. Abberley, as you may know, has offices in Yeovil and we currently own or manage over 9,000 homes in Somerset, with more currently in our development pipeline. Somerset is a key focus and strategic area for us, and by building more homes in our key area where we can service, maintain and manage our homes more efficiently, we provide excellent customer care and management and have safe, strong, healthy communities. This application proposes up to 100 homes. It is in a sustainable location with walkable access to local schools, parks, shops and surgery. Whilst the application is proposing to deliver 35% of the homes as affordable, Abberley will provide over and above this minimum, delivering all of the homes as affordable 10 years. We will deliver a mixed and balanced community with rented and shared ownership homes, including bungalows and smaller homes for local people to downsize and for those taking their first step onto the housing ladder. This, we hope, allows more members of the community to have the opportunity of a safe, warm, affordable home. As the officer has pointed out, we are also supporting the scheme with our stop water retrofitting strategy, which will ensure that the development is phosphate neutral. We're keen to ensure local labour is used when developing the scheme, and so we will use our in-house construction team, Abberley Build. This will ensure that the build process is well managed, with minimal disruption to the community and the delivery of the highest quality, energy efficient homes to our customers. Abberley and our customers will be part of the local community, not just through the build process, but acting as partners into the long term. With over 10,500 people currently registered on Somerset's housing register and over 2,600 of these in the former South Somerset area, there is a desperate need for affordable homes. This scheme will help by delivering up to 100 much needed affordable homes for local people. To grant consent today will be to offer these families and individuals the opportunity of a safe, warm, affordable home for many years, perhaps even a generation. I know that the consideration of this committee take very seriously, and today we urge you to embrace this opportunity and resolve to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping to time. The next speaker I have registered is Claire Ellis Hankey. Okay, thank you. The next I have down is Councillor John Wood, who's speaking for British East Parish Council and Blandford Town Council. Can you put microphone on, please?
Firstly, we question
Can
this
you put
time,
microphone on, please?
I'll pick one, sorry.
Thank you.
Firstly, we question at this time, do we really need to turn productive farmland into houses? Our total housing requirement under the 006/28 plan was 374. We have already achieved over 500, 33% more than the plan, in an area with little or almost no work opportunities, together with no added infrastructure improvements. We dispute further development is sustainable. Under the policy for Langford and Hughes Episcopi direction of growth, all development must avoid the coalescence with the settlement of Weir. This was endorsed by the Planning Inspectorate, who approved the plan in 2015. In his report, he stated, the policy makes it clear that any development to the north must avoid coalescence with Weir, and there is no reason to doubt the council's commitment to this objective. Please refer to your pages 41 and 53 on your agenda. Therefore, before we have any further large-scale building work in this area, please can we now agree where this break line is? Also, as far as this field is concerned, can it also be agreed what a significant landscape buffer to the northern part of the site consists of? Hopefully, not a hedge. Starting with the north part of Old Kelway's wall is a good reference. To continue a line east of this point of the wall needs to be established at the point to cease development. All above this wall and proposed reference line is most definitely Weir. Our total employment requirement land under the plan was 4 hectares. Achievement to date, 0. In the plan, it was this area that we're talking about is proposed to be allocated for employment. We need to consider for every 10 houses built on this land, 1 business unit. Our total jobs in the plan for 28 was 284. Achieved, 0. With 2 banks, a main post office, 4 pubs and several shops now closed, more than likely the achievement figure is negative. In fact, when the banks and the post office closed, there was a 30% shortfall of footfall in Langford. Approving this application today in its present form would mean that the proposed 2036 housing requirement, 160% of the original plan, is achieved 12 years early, and we would have totally failed to address the lack of employment together with all the rest of our service issues. It is
Can you draw your remarks to a close,
absolutely
please? You're up to 3 minutes.
certain.
Can you draw your remarks to a close, please?
Sorry,
Can you draw your remarks to a close, please?
yes.
You're
It's absolutely said that the density of residential housing, with this density, the remaining landowners of this field will cite this application as precedent to accept approval of housing at an equivalent density rather than any commercial use.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ward. That's your time. The next speaker I have down to is David Vida, who's chair of Higham Parish Council, Basin Parish.
Hello, I am David Boyger, Chair of Higham Parish Council. Higham Parish is adjacent to this site, the boundary is a mill stream. We'd ask you to please refer to page 7 of the officer report submitted to the documents of this plan application on the 13th of December 2023. This shows Higham Parish Council's previous consultation and objection to this plan application. I am concentrating on the traffic on the designated HGV routes between the A372 along Sutton via Tangor Lane and the B3153 to the 372 at the roundabout by Wincamp Road, Part of this route is in Higham Parish. I would like to share with you information about recent traffic flows on the B3153. Higham Parish Council share a SID, street indicator device, with other parishes, and one of the sites we use is on Pix Hill. Data collected from the SID site at Pix Hill between 11 a.m. the 12th of September and 11:59 a.m. on the 24th of September 2023 show that there are a total of 40,538 vehicle movements in this time span. This equates to a 5-day weekdays daily average of 3,700 per day. A full week average, including weekends, of 3,150 vehicle movements per day. Peak time, 8 a.m., weekday average, 315. Including weekends, average 256. Peak time, 4 p.m., weekday average, 386. Including weekends, 332. These figures are only for the traffic counts one way, from Somerton towards Langport. 101 bed dwellings equate to 150 vehicles plus visitors' cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being so brief. The final speaker I have on this item is James Tizard, on behalf of the applicant.
Members, thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. My name is James Tizard. I'm a partner at LDLB, speaking in support of the application. Your officers have prepared a detailed, robust committee report which demonstrates that across all technical areas, whether that be archaeology, ecology, highways and flood risk, drainage, the proposals are in accordance with the adopted local plan policies. In such instances, planning board guidance makes clear that such schemes should be approved without delay. Delay in relation to this has happened outside of anyone's control due to phosphates. The application was submitted in April 2021. For the past 3 years, we've been working with officers to look at a suitable phosphate mitigation solution. A number of schemes in South Somerset do not have this. This is an opportunity to bring forward a scheme that in the emerging South Somerset local plan was a proposed allocation for the local manager. The council currently has around about a 3-year land supply. There are over 2,600 people on the housing register in need of housing. The scheme itself will make contributions to the NHS. There'll be investment into the education through the Section 106 process. More houses offer more viability to services such as buses. I believe there is a moral obligation for the younger generation, the working generation who live in South Somerset, the opportunity to have a home. The local plan review before the merger thought this would be a suitable location for housing.
Thank you. Thank you for being brief. I will now ask the officer to respond to the points raised by the various speakers.
Thank you, Chair. Let's just go through a few of the points. One in terms of local plan allocation figures for housing. Langport was allocated 374 houses to be delivered through the plan period. With this additional 100 houses, that will be 605. But that is in line with other market towns, rural towns, in terms of their capacity. Those figures given are not maximum figures; they're minimum figures. So I don't see any reason to say that oversupply would be against policy. The other point raised about schooling and doctor surgery. There are contributions to education. They've been asked how much to compensate for or mitigate against the additional housing. They've set out their figure. It should be secured by Section 106. The NHS have equally been consulted and provided the figures for offsetting the additional homes. In terms of coalescence, as the parish councillor quite rightly pointed out, that the inspector in considering this direction of growth considered Wern to be to the north and not down the eastern side of the site. In terms of agricultural land, the majority of this site is grade 3B, with a small section, unusually cutting through the top, which is 4, but the majority of the site is 3B. In terms of flooding, the LLFA have no objections to this. It is in flood zone 1, which has the lowest probability of flooding. And again, in terms of traffic generation, that highway authority have no objections to this and recommended use of conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm just going to quickly go around the room to ask members if they have any points that were raised that have not yet been clarified before we get on to those things. Councillor Kendall, do you have any points which you would like clarified that have been brought up by speakers?
Yeah, it was mentioned at 25 houses at the beginning, but then went up to 100, but the document does say 100. But on the map, is that showing 100 houses or is that showing just an ideal development?
That's showing 100 houses.
That's definitely 100 houses.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So another question is, that's seeing the local plan, I think that's answered just now by the planning officer saying that's a minimum requirement, not a maximum. That's been done, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Potts-Jones.
Thank you.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Chairman. I was very interested in the Agri speaker's presentation and her indication that all the houses on these sites would be affordable. So does that mean that everything on this site is in effect going to be rented in some form or other? And will there be any provision for private sale or shared ownership? And if the deal between Agri and the applicant falls through, what then will happen to the phosphate mitigation? And it would also be useful to have a likely breakdown on the housing tenure times. And would this possibly, now that we know that it's going to potentially be a site for affordable housing 100%, will that have any implication on conditions?
Thank you, Chairman. The issue here in terms of the phosphate solution is there are very few providers who can deliver this water efficiency measure, who own a lot of stock, and they have to have a commitment that they're going to retain control of that stock. And so primarily it's housing associations or councils, housing departments, of which we now have 2, who could actually deliver that option. So to deliver that solution, you're effectively dealing with a housing association as your core partner. So they have an in. I did actually, it's a fair point, because I did want to make the point that if Agri haven't actually done the deal, then, you know, there's an issue where you're listening to potentially a sales pitch. But in this instance, if Agri and the applicants walked away, the applicants would have to find another phosphate solution and come back to us. In terms of tenure type, I don't have that detail because obviously Agri will have some thoughts about what they're looking to acquire. But where we have had concerns about the potential that we're going to create a very high level single tenure, we have been able to ask for a local letting plan so that we can actually manage opportunity.
I certainly can't tell you what Abra's business case is in terms of whether they might include some shared ownership units within the product. And so that would be something for them. From our perspective, we are securing the policy compliant solution. The other point I wanted to touch on before we get too much into the debate is actually a slight step back. Because you will probably be aware that this morning the Secretary of State announced that he will be introducing an updated National Planning Policy Framework document. And there are a lot of headlines around that. It was actually published about an hour ago, but it's not quite as transformative as might have been suggested. So we still have the tilted balance, which requires us to deliver houses and suggests that we need to be prioritising the policies that deliver housing over the policies that provide the other protections within the balance. So we've discussed this on many occasions in the past. It does provide some opportunities to vary from a historic position. So we will still have a 5-year housing supply position. If you had a local plan that was about to be published or was about to go to examination, you could go down to 4 years, but that's not the case for us. It's likely it's taken away one of the buffers you add to your housing supply, which is the 5% buffer. So that would reduce the amount of housing that we would need to find. But a quick calculation suggests that we're still looking at our current housing supply being somewhere between 2.9 and 3.1 years instead of 2.7 to 2.9. The other point is that the NPPF does say that the national technical approach to defining we will tell you what your self-supply is. That is now a starting point for local evidence base. However, the two options that South have tested through local evidence was the 675 houses in the adopted local plan, or there's a second figure that was presented in 2021 when we commissioned an updated study, which was about 690 houses. So in evidence-based terms, we may be about 30 houses a year away from the national position, but that isn't enough to get us anywhere near delivering a housing supply. So whatever was trailed about housing supply and local control, the nuances suggest that we are still not far from the position we were at yesterday before the NPPF was updated. So we're still in very much tilted balance territory.
Thank you. Steve, do you have any questions? Councillor Webb.
You are rather, yes, thank you, Chairman. Rather on what John was just saying, I was on page 42, I was reading the second paragraph on planning balance. And I frankly, it didn't seem to make sense to me. Could you just explain in somewhat more simpler terms what that paragraph means? Second paragraph, particularly where it starts, the tilted balance towards the presumption in favour of sustainable development triggered by paragraph 11 of the NPPF is no longer considered to apply in the context of 5-year land supply, and etc. down to the end of that paragraph. Is that what you just were explaining to us, John, or is that?
That's correct, which is the tilted balance. I haven't got the report in front of me, but the the tilted balance towards the sustainable is triggered, it should be saying, well, what it is intending to say is that you have to apply the tilted balance, i.e. that the harms have got to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. The upshot of that is that you can have harm to landscape character, but actually the driver is going to be delivering housing supply. So, you've got to identify that there is a particular level of harm about a particular landscape character, because most developments, at appeal inspectors will say, well, yeah, all development will have a harm to landscape character, particularly if it's a greenfield site, but that in itself is not sufficient to outweigh the benefit. So it is still a relatively high test. Obviously, we will have to redo reports for the next committee, well, actually for future committees to take into account the less than an hour old NPPF. But as I said, effectively, the NPPF might have clawed back 0.2, 0.3 of a year, but we're still very much at the sort of 3 years, not 5 years.
Can I come back just to a point?
Yeah.
And I think on the landscape, etc., yeah, I follow that one. But does the tilted balance apply to the number of houses which have been allocated under the local plan? As in this case where it's well over? I think you'll probably Chairman shaking his head, but I just wonder if that balance could apply to that or not.
The point is, none of the figures in your plan are maximums, so it is the ceiling that you hit and stop. You know, it is a minimum that you're encouraged to exceed. Now, you know, for some years, I think the South and its predecessor have been aware that slower delivery on the big sites in Yeovil has meant that there's been pressure elsewhere. We're in no different position. The issue for you is, does this level of development, you know, so markedly alter the character of Jewish and Langport that it's, you know, that is a demonstrable harm that outweighs the benefit of delivering housing. And I think that is a pretty high test for committees, particularly when we're seeing schemes at this scale on sort of market town edges. And we've seen a few similar over the last 6 months where, you know, it is the need to deliver. To a degree, the fact that there is a development partner here is probably a beneficial factor because there is a delivery partner rather than speculation.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, your Honour. Mr. Kirby? I don't think I've got any have not been answered, so I think we're in a position to move on to the debate.
Sorry, Chairman, I do have another question. Again, it's probably to do with the affordable housing element, but is there going to be, or are we in a position or have the power to condition that there is some priority for local people? Because a lot of affordable housing doesn't always go to local people, because you have to balance against the housing register.
There is a discussion that I think all of the former districts are having now about how to be consistent. And certainly the model that we're looking at the moment is having this, if you like, cascade of local parish first. Obviously, there's always going to be a disconnect between having properties available and having people within the area to target. But the retention of the cascade is still part of the local plan and still part of the section 106.
So just for clarification, we can potentially condition in that there is basically a Langport first policy.
Or Jewish policy.
Or Jewish policy, but.
I think you could certainly ask that the heads of terms include that reference, including a cascade.
Okay, that's one. And the other one,
I want to just clarify that, because I think you've stepped into allocation policy, which is a housing issue rather than a planning issue. Is it reasonable for us to place anything in the planning application, which we are already controlling elsewhere through home funders policies? We're the allocation authority. So do we need to do it as a condition, or is it already there? Sorry, is it already there? That's what I'm saying.
I think you could add it to the heads of terms through the planning decision today, and I mean, it might have to come in the negotiation at the time of the section 106, if it is something that's already covered by housing policies that we already have. I mean, obviously I don't know them, I don't know them all off by heart, so I can't help with those, but it would be negotiated out at that stage, obviously only if it's covered by something else. So I think if it's something that you feel strongly about, then you could ask for it to be put in at this stage.
Members, do we think we want officers to focus on that in the section 106 agreements? Can I look for an indication from you? Councillor, what's yours?
Sorry, I'm just, I'm agreeing. I do think we've got to think locally, first in this instance. There's an awful lot of development here.
I do feel there has to be some benefit for the local community. And this is possibly one, it gives local people a chance to get on the housing ladder or even move back to look after, say, more elderly parents, which is becoming an increasing issue, as is being raised by the demographics.
Okay, I think it's
And we
secure
did
what we're trying to do. So
We
can
did
say
have
that?
a rural exceptions policy.
We did, but this is not a rural exception. Do we actually need to do this formally by motion, or can we just instruct them to do the negotiation?
You can add it, at the time of resolution, if Colin can make a note that we would be amending the resolution to add that.
I think it's wise. There seems to be consensus here, so I think that'd be wise. Okay, Councillor Webb.
Yeah. During the objectives, there was mention of the fact that the village or the settlement of Ween to the north. Weird, sorry, was only 50 metres from this site, and I'd just like clarification on that point. I saw the map with the red arrows, but is there actually a defining point where development can't approach with?
I'll leave Colin to deal with the specifics of the case, but there is actually, one of the issues that, again, this committee and predecessors have looked at is the fact that actually around our larger settlements, quite often the parish will immediately abut. And therefore we've had situations where we've been approving housing in a parish which is entirely contiguous with a larger town, and some concerns about where the sill goes, etc., because you naturally think there's a flow going into the bigger place, but potentially sill goes to the small place. But I think the issue about an administrative boundary is not a strong one. It's more about the landscape character, because Yeovil is surrounded by parishes which are going to take large developments, but they're not parts of Yeovil. They're functionally parts of Yeovil, but they're not administratively parts of Yeovil.
Just trying to find a suitable map plan to show you. Yeah, this is site boundary. This is the property called the Quackery. Yeah, and it is probably within 50 metres the boundary of it. But the inspector who oversaw the adoption of the local plan was talking about Wern to the north. You can see that there's pretty much no development down this lane. This is a dead end that stops around about here. And the Quackery sits in here. So, yeah, in my view, in my opinion, this is not really in coalescence with one which is along the top.
Chairman, you've got to go up to Weir Lane. That is all weird.
I'm sorry, we're not debating this with public. Please. We appreciate the point that you're trying to make. However, it is a somewhat technical point. I think, for my part, as we're in the debate, I do actually agree with the officer that, the issue of coalescence, the physical coalescence for me, and the fact that there's an administrative leg helping down and that property happens to be anything you're defeating your own argument, because it's surrounded by buildings which are part of the other settlement you're trying to not coalesce with. So.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Albert.
Sorry to drive you completely insane, Chairman. A couple of questions. I'm looking at that map. I'm also seeing quite a wide band of what looks like waterway, which is stream, and I know there are a couple of ponds in there. Just like to know, has that ever overtopped and flooded, bearing in mind the recent heavy rains that we now seem to be getting? And my second question is, can you confirm what our actual 5-year housing supply is? Because I understand we may well have lost an appeal that's made the position worse. I think it's referred to in the next application, but it's not with this one, and I think we need to know so we have consistency.
Thank you. The 5-year supply position, we published a position statement in October that suggested we had about 3.29 years, so it's still a significant gap. As part of the appeal that we are currently pursuing with a land promoter in Yeovil, we've accepted, or we've had to accept, that actually the development in Henstridge, which came before this committee about 2 to 3 meetings ago, by reason of not accepting the highway changes, there's a chance that that permission may not be capable of being implemented in time. And furthermore, there was some suggestions that one of the larger sites in Yeovil is not delivering. There's no evidence that it's delivered the level of housing that it had suggested. As a consequence of those two things, we've got a range position, and the range position accepts the fact that we've got 2 planning permissions, or 2 resolutions to approve development, which are awaiting section 06s, which are both sat with our solicitor to sign if they can get around before Christmas. So we've got a range of about 2.8 to 2.9 years. According to our policy colleague's suggestion, having looked at the MPPF, I'll try to get that up. We think that the range is now in the order of 2.9 to 3.1 years. So it's moved marginally in our favour, but we are a significant way short of the 5-year.
So just to clarify, for those of us, okay, we're probably arguing over all increments, but just to confirm, for today's applications that are coming before us, this one and the Coat Road one, we're going to be working on a 2.9 to 3.1 years 5-year housing and supply. Which figure are we actually working on, John?
Well, we're using a range because until the reason we're using a range is when we agreed a statement of common ground with our appellants, we hadn't issued permissions, but we fully intended to before the inquiry started, which is why we've got the range. I suspect that 3.1 is going to be the factor because I know both of the permissions are waiting with solicitors for signature. There's no discussions there, they're just being circulated for signature, and it's actually a question of when the council will seal those documents. So my view would be that 3.1 is the figure that we can use, but obviously 3.1 is way short of 5.
I think that's the key point. We're just absolutely nowhere near. For this decision today, we're absolutely nowhere near. So we absolutely take the balance.
Yeah, I don't think that's in dispute, but it is helpful for people to know just what to.
I'm sorry.
To help to what they're working to. And the other bit I just asked about was on the direction of growth map, was have those streams or ponds ever been known to overtop or flood?
Those areas are not surface water flooding, they're actual flood zones. So that is the maximum extent. I'm afraid I can't answer whether it's ever leaked across the other side of the road, but in terms of the LLFA, they don't see any issues with flooding on this site.
Okay, thank you. And finally, this may be one for debate, but in the event if this committee votes to approve this application, can we ask that the reserved matters come back to the local community for consultation, and particularly that Agri themselves work with the local community to ensure that needs are met as best they can?
In terms of local consultation, there's always going to be an encouragement that a major development does do a public consultation exercise. There would be a consultation when a reserve matters application came to us, because that would be part of our statutory role. So there's the democracy bit in terms of whether that application comes to committee will be triggered by our scheme of delegation, whatever that might look like in 2 years. Currently, a parish objection on a major will take an application to committee automatically. I think in terms of encouragement, it would be more a matter for a side letter to Avery once they've concluded, to encourage them to engage locally, because there is the opportunity to deal with this housing need issue, which is different to simply a developer coming forward with a policy compliant only solution. So there is value if Avery do conclude this undertaking and then engaging in public consultation, and our validation checklist does encourage that as well. We can't make it mandatory, but we do support it.
Okay, do members have any other points that we should put in debate on this? Okay, in which case I think the proposal in front of us is the officer recommendation, which we have amended to cover the point raised earlier in the debate with respect to tenure. Do you have some, do you want to put a firm proposal as to what it is you're suggesting that we will resolve?
It would simply be a cascade mechanism, which it's locals first and then cascades to surrounding parishes and then to the district.
Okay, so that's the proposal. Yeah, that's the heads of agreement for negotiation. So I'll move the officer's recommendation from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Osborne.
I just added wider. I fully respect local views on this, but unfortunately, I think the evidence base on the tilted balance weighs too far in favour of this application. It is also part of your direction of growth, which was approved at inspection in the local plan, and that is a very major policy consideration. The 35% affordable housing, that is also a material benefit, and we have recommended and steered that priority is given to local people, and I would urge anyone local who wishes to apply for affordable housing stock that they do need to register on the Home Finder Register, as that's the only way you can get into or apply for housing through the registered social landlord system. So I think that's quite an important point to bear in mind. It's a side one, but I think it needs to be made. So yes, I will second this because the evidence in this case takes us to very, very, I guess, reluctant approval. It is not always good for communities to see significant rates of development because that raises other issues, particularly social ones, further down the line in terms of integration. But I will support it on this occasion.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Councillor Hobbs.
I don't need to say, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I was going to make the point about Castlecarry, which was mentioned in the text as a community that have had to accept far more houses than were on the neighbourhood plan. We were forced that way under appeal on 3 different occasions, and we are bloody unhappy with it. But there's nothing anybody can do about it. We have 900 houses over 275. And don't believe what anyone tells you that Castlecarry hasn't been altered by what the appeals have led to. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any other points of debate? In which case I'll move to the vote, which has been proposed and seconded. Can I see show of hands all of those in favour of the officer's recommendation as amended? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. I know this is very difficult to hear, but we operate in a world where we don't get to choose the rules, we get handed down from the national policy, and the best thing for the locals is to try and keep it under local control, so we can do things like securing negotiations with a particular provider in this case. In other cases, we've been able to secure other benefits from keeping the decision local. Thank you very much. We will move to the next item on the agenda, item 6, which is planning application 21/01/35 out, which is Code Road Martin.
Let's just put it down for comfort break.
Okay, can we have a quick comfort break, come back at 20 past, please, 20 past. Thank you. We'll resume the meeting then. So planning application 21010335. It's not out, but we're at Martop. Tom.
Thank you, Chair. This is an outline application for up to 100 dwellings with all matters reserved apart from access. It is proposed that 35% of the dwellings will be affordable in line with adopted policy. This is the site. Martop to the right, Coat to the left. The development area is this part of the site, with the remainder being set aside for open space and woodland planting. Zoomed in slightly. This is Coat Road along the bottom. Coat to the left. Tuck to the right. And West Road. Aerial view. Zoomed in slightly aerial view. This is the development area. This is the area that's set out for open space and woodland planting. This is the indicative layout. Master plan showing the proposed development area, proposed open space, and we'll return to this slide later, but as context, first group of photographs you'll see will be taken at the western end, and the next set of photographs will be taken at the eastern end. This photograph from the west end over the site, over the field access gate. This is looking into the area that's proposed as open space and woodland area. It's looking towards the proposed residential site, which will be behind this hedge line here. And just another photograph looking into the woodland part of the open space. This is looking down Coat Road towards Martop. For orientation purposes, this large tree here sits roughly 3/4 of the way down the open space and woodland area. This is from Field Gate, looking towards the entrance to Coat. The line flows under the road here. This is the view towards the residential part of the development, which is situated in here. The access proposed is just beyond that line, just in here. This house on the right is Lyndhurst. From the field, from the existing field gate access, trees in the distance of a northern boundary. The trees running on the left form the western boundary. So again over the site from that access, these trees here from the western boundary up to the northern boundary at the top. View of the site with the garage to Lyndhurst on the right. Site goes all the way back to the trees at the back. That forms the boundary on the left. The access is proposed through the hedge in approximately this location. Again, Coat Road towards Coat on the right hand side. So view towards Martop with Lyndhurst on the left. It's proposed to create a footpath linking into Martop in front of Lyndhurst. This is the indicative layout plan showing potential layout. The line runs along the rear of the site and down the western boundary. This hatched area is an approved scheme for 35 dwellings. That's access off Lyndhurst Grove. singular vehicular access is proposed onto Court Road at this point here. The site is located in flood zone 1, which has the lowest probability of flooding. The LFA have not objected to the proposed development. There are areas that are subject to surface water flooding along the line, as shown on this Environment Agency map. However, the surface water does not affect the site. Surface water does cause flooding approach into Coat in this area here. This is technical details of the road layout. It's proposed to remove a 7-metre wide section of the hedge. It's not necessary to remove any additional parts of the hedge to achieve visibility. The Highway Authority have not objected and have recommended conditions and a section 106 to secure travel line. This is the proposed off-site works to create a footpath along the frontage of the site, along the frontage of Lyndhurst, connecting into an existing footpath here, creating tactile crossovering points to an existing footpath, and then infill this section here with a new footpath so it links up to the footpath taking you into Martock. While the work on the South Somerset Local Plan Review has stopped and is of little material consideration, it is a useful indication of the direction of travel regarding site allocations. MB1 was indicated as a potential for a site for residential development. That's the current site that we're looking at. Site MB2 is nearing completion. South Somerset carried out a peripheral landscape study which indicated that the site was an area of moderate landscape sensitivity, the area in which the open space and woodland plantings proposed has been identified as an area of high landscape sensitivity. Martock Neighbourhood Plan acknowledges this site as a potential for residential development under policy Part 13. This is primarily based on the local plan review, because the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. Both the adopted local plan and Martock Neighbourhood Plan policies that restrict housing supply be considered out of date, and the tilted balance set out in the NPPF is applied. This means that where residential development is considered to be sustainable, it should be approved, providing any harm is outweighed by its benefits. The adopted local plan sets out the number of houses that should be delivered within the lifetime of the local plan. It is acknowledged that Martock has seen the delivery in the number of houses above those set out in the local plan. However, these figures are set as minimums and not as maximum numbers that should be taken in context of the shortfall in housing delivery. The Martock Neighbourhood Plan identifies the area between the proposed development and Code as a green gap. It is not proposed to encroach into this area with built form. Key considerations for the committee in this outline application is the principle of the development, taking into account the council's lack of a 5-year housing land supply. Application before you is an outline. All details concerning appearance, landscape, layout and scale are indicative only and to be agreed at the reserved matter stage. The only details for approval is the highway access. The indicative layout plan shows that up to 100 houses can be accommodated on site to neighbouring properties' privacy and amenity. Positive responses from technical consultees in relation to ecology, phosphate, drainage, affordable housing, public open space, archaeology and highways have been received. The Highway Authority are content with the proposal in terms of highway safety, approved suggested conditions in section 106. It is therefore recommended to the committee that the application be approved, subject to the section 106 provision and conditions attached to this officer's report. Chair, I think I've missed a section. I could just, return to this slide. Initially, a phosphate solution was proposed to incorporate a wetland into the open space and woodland element of the site. But this proved not to be viable, and an alternative strategy was explored. Phosphate mitigation strategy proposed now involves the installation of a package treatment plant to be adopted by Albion Water. Treatment plant will remove the majority of phosphates. However, the balance of the phosphate mitigation will be purchased through an off-site credit scheme that has been endorsed by the council and ratified by Natural England. Discharge to the watercourse will require separate agreements with the Environment Agency and the Parrot Internal Drainage Board outside of the planning process. The mitigation strategy will be secured by a Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The first speaker I have on this is Andrew Clegg. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, I'm Andrew Clegg and I'm a retired chemist. I was responsible for guiding our neighbourhood plan to fruition in 2021. This application dates from March 2021. It is on the plot of land earmarked in the neighbourhood plan in consultation with South Somerset policy planners for 55 houses. But during the next local plan period after 2028. Both we and South Somerset policy planners opposed this development in 2021 because it would undermine the South Somerset settlement policy, taking the total new houses in Martock from 220 to over 400, which is on a par with large market towns such as Ilminster. When the proposal was submitted, South Somerset had a 5-year land supply. This changed when the appeal inspector Tempcombe ruled that development plots without mitigation plans could not be counted towards the land supply. These currently number about 2 years supply. Because phosphate neutrality is not normally formalised until reserved matters, the Somerset neutrality policy is having the unintended consequence of ensuring that the areas south will never be able to show 5-year land supply. Other planning authorities have avoided this by employing a whole catchment approach rather than an individual plot approach. Our development requires phosphate mitigation of 13 kilograms per year. 3 fields away, Martock Sewage Works is currently being modified to remove 4,350 kilograms per year from the Parrot catchment. But under the current Somerset policy, this can't count. We would like to see this application decision postponed pending a reconsideration of the mitigation policy and the restoration of the 5-year land supply. The village has never met the developers. We would like to have a face-to-face consultation. A planned meeting fell away under COVID and has never been reinstituted, and it's really needed now. As my colleagues will show, many untidy loose ends have emerged with the passage of time. These range variously from flooding and sewage to access. The access issue arises because of a large increase in nearby housing from 40 to 160 since the application was made in 2021. This completely changes access parameters, particularly road traffic and safety. And so we urge that this application decision be postponed till all its problems have been addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's 3 minutes. The second speaker I have is Claire Gibson.
Hi everyone. Firstly, I'm very pleased to be here today. As Andy mentioned, when this planning application was first submitted in December 2020, I didn't receive any notification and only found out from neighbours. The subsequent consultation meeting was cancelled due to COVID, understandably, but it's never been rescheduled.
My house and garden field are adjacent to proposed development. Those Brine is what divides us. I've lived here for 29 years, 2 of which is a flood water. During that time, I've experienced various levels of flooding in my house, on my land, and so this is not an extreme event. The most recent floods have been within a month of each other. First on the 2nd of November, and then the flooding on the 4th of December was the worst that I can remember due to extent and speed. Within 2 to 3 hours, it developed from a few puddles in my back garden to the surface water, a little surface water on Cove Road to this. That's my back garden. Here, the water is over 3 feet deep, and I had to wear waders to position with sandbags. My house, which is 3 to 4, my house, 300 to 400 years old, it's also listed. Listed in marks that celebrates a building's special architectural and historic interest and protects it for its current and future generations to enjoy. Flash flooding will impact the structural integrity of my house. Deadly threatening survival for future generations. Sorry. Photo 2 of my driveway. I've got that one. That's that one. That. Here you can see the water rushing out onto Cove Road. Photo 3 is the road to Martock, which is that one. Photo 4 is the road to Coat. Oh, actually, that's the other way around, I think. From these photos, you can see the road was impassable to the average vehicle, which means the Coat is now cut off. 2 other roads into and out of the Coat were deeper and with the result of abandoned cars. Imagine if there was an emergency, how would we get access to an ambulance? Photo 5 is Fergus Rhine. That one. This is Fergus Rhine, and you can clearly see it's flooding into my garden and is the area of the field where the treatment plants are planned. The flooding of these structures will surely inhibit, if not completely, make them functioning redundant. So releasing phosphates and sewage into the watercourse and my home. Another point to make here is that couple of roads. During the summer months, Fergus Rhine can run dry, making it unsuitable for phosphate mitigation. These fields are on a development that is proposed of high quality farmland which should protect as part of the nation's drive to obtain food security. I hope you can see why I'm objecting to this development. The flooding, the historical damage, impaired road access and loss of high-grade agricultural land. One of these reasons should be enough to question this proposal for all 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker I have is Gordon Swindles, who's the flood warden coordinator.
Chair, members, you've heard I am the flood warden coordinator at Martock, dealing with the prevention and management of flooding for the parish over the last decade. The last comment from the local Leeds Flood Authority regarding this site was on the 19th of August 2021, and a number of amendments have been made to plans since then. The pinch point of Fergus Rhine culvert causes the flooding on Coat Road. It's a road safety issue, impeding access to or from Coat for the proposed site residents. To offset phosphate pollution, it was proposed to create a wetland area, as shown on the plan dated 1st of March last year. No, if you put that one up, please. Which I objected to in February this year, saying that it would fail. I was informed yesterday that it was no longer being proposed, but there's no document on the planning website to indicate that. This uncertainty on what is being proposed by the developer was commented on by the Internal Drainage Board in their letter 6 days ago. A package treatment plant is now proposed together with credits, but there's no document on the planning website providing any information regarding the PTP. I recently liaised with Albion Water over another site in Martock where they are proposing to have the outflow go through an attenuation area with reeds to obviously help filter the water and make it purer. If that happens at this site, the attenuation areas are actually in the floodplain. So the chances of doing that are pretty slim. A letter from ECOS dated the 7th of December last year recommending refusal because the calculations relating to the phosphate pollution were incomplete. Well, this is unclear whether it refers to the wetland proposal or the current proposal with the PTP. There's no document on the planning website to clarify this. Attenuation areas, I've just said to you, the surface water preliminary drainage plan in a document dated the 7th of April last year show they are in the floodplain from the Rhine. Colin, could you show the next one? In view of the recent December flooding at the location, the Internal Drainage Board now require an hydraulic assessment of the catchment and modelling of the Rhine to assess the extent of the floodplain. The Internal Drainage Board also requires surface water outflow from the site to be reduced. Expensive solutions could solve the flooding issues by flood modelling of the Rhine, together with identifying attenuation areas which are not in the floodplain. This may require the use of some of the land in the centre of the U-shape of the site. A development should have a lifetime of 100 years, and until a solution is found to ensure safe road access to the site, I suggest the application is refused. Taking into account the information now required by the IDP, there being no further comments from the LLFA since August 2021, and the lack of information on the planning website, which could, of course, tilt the balance if the public are not able to view all of the information that is available. If this course of action was taken, yes, this would then allow interested parties to fully consult with a view to all planning applications being submitted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is John Hall.
Could you put up the map so I can speak, so you can look at the map? Speak. Can you put up the overview of the development site, please? The one with the houses on. That's fine. So I'll talk as I speak. You can look at that. Okay. But I'm John Hall, I'm a resident of Coate. I'm talking about the Green Gap. The Green Gap was defined in the Martock Neighbourhood Plan of 2021 to protect the hamlets of Coate and Stapleton from the development creep from Martock in Policy Mark 14. Of the two fields to the north of Coate Road, the western one defined the Green Gap and is classified in the Martock Peripheral Landscape Study as an area of high landscape sensitivity, and the field that makes up the eastern side is of moderate sensitivity. Both fields are listed in the Somerset Heritage Record as former ridge and furrow fields, and together with the fields south of the road have been open farmland for probably over 1,000 years. The development of any kind should be strictly confined to the eastern side adjacent to Lyndhurst Road, and the long-standing open nature of the field around Coate should not be compromised. Any development, including stands of fields that compromises the sensitivity of the landscape and associated views across the Green Gap, separating Coate and Martock, is unacceptable. The intention of the Green Gap policy in the neighbourhood plan is to preserve the open landscape with associated views that have existed there for over 1,000 years. Back in November 2020, LVA distributed a leaflet to a limited group of households in Coate. This showed the two fields to the north of Coate Road with a development of 120 houses over 1.5 fields that were proposed, which was contrary to the neighbourhood plan, which had become active in 2021. Subsequently, LVA submitted a plan in June 2021 to cram 100 houses into the most eastern field next to Martock, designated MB1 in the plan, which was always part of the post-2028 planning to have 55 houses built on it. In the current application, next to development is a field which was privately owned, presumably by the existing landowner. There would appear to be no access to the blank field area from the planted woodland area to the west. Is this blank area to the left is the blank area to be left to nature, or until it's developed in phase 2 of the building project? This will be the green gap area as a contrary to neighbourhood plan policy. The west side of the plot next to Coate, the green gap, will be planted as part of this development with trees. There's no mention in the application of who will be responsible for managing this area or who it will belong to. From the LVA website, one of its mission statements is that they, I quote, passionately believe in the need to provide more of the right houses in the right place. A shame that cramming 100 houses into the space, it's not the right number. Yes, I'm finishing. It's a shame that cramming 100 houses into the space is not the right number and not at the right time. Thank you.
The next speaker I have is Rob Lyon. Oh, sorry, I think it's Anthony Phillips. Mr. Lyon's behalf, is that correct?
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Phillips. I'm a local resident. The transport assessment commissioned by the developers is based on very old traffic flows from 2018, updated by broad averages for the whole of Somerset. It estimates there will be only 47 movements during peak hours from 100 houses. It does not include the impact of the current development of 120 houses south of Coate Road. There is already 80% out commuting from Martock, so I would suggest that from these 100 houses, there could be 150 commuters daily. A 16-mile round trip journey, 5 days a week, 48 weeks a year, plus weekly shopping, would generate over 600,000 miles a year. Clearly in contravention of Section 9 of the NDPF, which states significant development should be focused on locations which are or can be made sustainable through limiting the need to travel. Nearly all those journeys will either be down North Street, which is already heavily congested, or through Ash, which suffers extreme traffic congestion at peak times, particularly around the primary school. Far more traffic will be generated than any national or county average, and the impact will be severe. This increase poses a real threat to pedestrian safety and to air pollution and to people's health. The impact on local infrastructure will also be severe. Data from the NHS shows Martock has 2,600 patients per GP, compared to an average in Somerset of 1,143 and 1,721 nationally. The surgery already struggles to meet the demand, and much of its workload is dealt with at South Petherton surgery, 3 miles away with no scheduled public transport. I recognise this as a problem for the NHS, but the population of Martock will not appreciate another 100 houses and perhaps 300 patients being added when there is no identified need for the housing in Martock. It will be more realistic to consider this application after 2028, as included in local plans, by which time the true impact of the 2 other Coate Road developments of 155 houses on traffic and infrastructure will be clearer. I have 10 seconds, Chairman. I'd like to say I've read in the paper this morning a quote, I think, from a minister that the new rules introduced by the government, quote, are intended to provide houses where they are needed. They are not needed in Martop at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker I have is Councillor Ashley Chapman from Martop PC.
I'm representing Martop Parish Council because John Hall, the chairman, and Paul Hedier, the planning chair, aren't available today. We completely endorse all that the previous speakers have said. I won't repeat any of their points. We do not completely oppose the development on the plots. We have agreed it with Somerset County Council that it should be developed, but restricted to 55 and not before 2028 to allow controlled growth of the village. Cope residents object to the destruction of the open view between Martop across the green space, which I think has been covered, so I'm going to cover that. And the transport plan that was looked at, it used traffic data from before the Cope Road development, which added 160 houses. So that is out of date and needs to be redone. That combines with the sewage issues that were covered earlier. We feel that we ask the application to be refused so that these things can be reconsidered properly with adequate time. That's basically all I've got to say. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you for that relatively brief summary. Although Councillor Dilson did put herself down to speak, she's unable to have a voting side of family emergency. Councillor John Bailey is the other division member. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Yes, apologies for memory. She was due to speak for 3 minutes. I understand I can't cover her topics, but I'll cover my own. Firstly, I want to, while we're discussing the legal planning requirements, it's worthwhile remembering that we're making decisions that will be our legacy for the next generation. It's therefore important to make informed decisions. I appreciate that residents need somewhere to live, but we do need both quantity and quality of housing. The last few years have been difficult for everyone in the housing process, from the public sector to developers and builders, with a number of challenges including COVID, climate change and flooding prosperity. This application was first introduced in 2021. I'd like to support and endorse all the issues raised by the objectors by Martop PC. Particularly, I would like to emphasise 3 points. Firstly, consultation seems to be slim and patchy. At best, and I'd like to propose that we now have a full public consultation, which will also take into account the market changes in 2021. And some of those changes have come over the last day or two, so they're quite difficult to keep abreast of all these things. They've been mentioned by previous speakers. And I think that's part of the planning process that needs to be taken account of. Secondly, I want to emphasise the Green Gap, which is it reflected the developers' concerns about the Green Gap and identified in the Martop neighbourhood plan by doing 2 things. Pushed up 100 houses into a smaller space, up to 100 houses. What is the quality of life now compared to that originally intended? A large space has been left. What is its purpose? Future housing or permanent green space for residents? And who will maintain that? Point already made. And my third point to focus on is a question rather, transport. In Martop, there's an 80% out commute. At peak times with 100 houses, up to 200 cars could be leaving through one exit, then turning either right along the narrow road to Cope, subject to flooding, or left trying to access a busy North Street. In addition, since 2021, 180 houses have been added to Cope Road. What account has been taken of that? And I know particularly the footpath, which is part of the plans, which goes eastwards towards the North Street,
In fact, it doesn't cross at any point the Coat Road, where all the amenities and all the already active travel plans are taking people through to the schools and all the resources. So the final question is, what account has been taken of an active travel plan to link with Martock's amenities, which are all to the north? And I think in answer these questions, then we should consider deferment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The final speaker I have is Chair Alice Hankey.
Thank you, Chairman. I speak in support of this outline application as the planning agent. We've worked extensively with Somerset Council over the last 6 years to bring this proposed development forward. In 2018, the site was put forward as available for development in the Housing and Employment Land Availability Assessment. Representations were also made to the South Somerset Local Plan Review, which resulted in the site being put forward as a draft application in the preferred option for local plan. Furthermore, the neighbourhood plan makes clear that this site is acceptable for residential development in line with the planning inspector's recommendation and examination and compliance with policy MART 13 and as set out in the technical sections of the officer report for you. In 2020, we engaged in pre-application discussions with the then South Somerset District. The pre-app feedback received confirmed that Martock as a rural centre is a sustainable location for growth, particularly where this meets local housing need. The feedback also confirmed that a suitably designed scheme would be considered acceptable. Since the application was submitted in 2021, the 5-year housing land supply position has continued to worsen within the former South Somerset area, with the figure currently estimated to be below 3 years. Clearly, the phosphate situation has not helped Somerset South in bringing sites forward. However, this site offers an opportunity to provide a valuable contribution towards the land supply in a location that is considered by the council to be sustainable and on a site that South Somerset previously sought to allocate. As the committee report confirms, in principle, the development is acceptable and identifies a number of benefits that the scheme can offer in terms of contributions towards education, community, provision of housing against deficient land supply, and affordable housing, aiding Martock's sustainability. The proposed phosphate mitigation, the package treatment and credit purchase has been agreed by Natural England and Somerset Ecology Services, and there are no technical objections to the proposed development. There are large areas of high quality green space which provide BMG, will be publicly accessible, and also act as a buffer to prevent coalescence between Martock and Coat. The committee report summarises that there is no harm resulting from the proposals due to compliance with local plan policy in respect of drainage, ecology and biodiversity, heritage, highway safety, flood risk, landscape and residential amenity. Given the clear compliance with the development plan on technical matters and the strong recommendation of officers to approve the application, I urge you to approve this application as per the conditions set out in the officer report. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. So magically on 3 minutes. Yeah. That concludes the speakers. I think in the number, if we ask planning to respond to the speakers' comments themselves, and then we'll deal with our own queries the speakers have raised. That committee members? Could you press on the response to the speakers' comments?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, without going over the grounds, yes, it is recognised that Martock has taken further development than set out within the local plan, but these are minimum figures, not maximum figures. So figure for Martock was 220 over the period. And with this development, it will take that up to 400. In terms of highways, highways have come back and have not objected to this scheme. They have asked for an active travel plan to be secured by a Section 106 agreement and have suggested a number of conditions which are attached to the report. Yeah, the green gap that is within the neighbourhood plan. The build development does not encroach into the green gap. Talks were initially that the site was suitable for 55 dwellings. That would make best use of land, and as people can understand, especially taking into account the peripheral landscape study, the areas for development within Martock are fairly scarce, so best use has got to be made of land that is potentially allocated. So 100 houses on this site is considered acceptable. In terms of flooding, the very emotive speech from the lady, her house, which is in this area here, is subject to flooding, and it must be very stressful. But the EA modelling doesn't show that this site here is affected, and it has safe access out into Martock. In terms of the grade of agricultural land, this is grade 3A agricultural land. It's not the highest quality agricultural land. I think that covers my response.
Okay, I'm going to go to the room, but perhaps you can go a bit, you want to put your question.
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at the flood risk report in the report, and I want to point out that the road, the Cope Road, and if you look at the map, all the roads in and out of Martock twice in the past month and a half have meant that nobody could leave or enter this site. How can you possibly have a flood risk report which doesn't pick up any of that? Because at the end of the day,
okay, you're making it up.
Let me just finish. It's not 0.1%, it's 100% that the flooding is going to happen again. We're in this. I have the same problem in Poddington, where the flooding risk report for houses that are put in Poddington have meant that they've flooded 3 times this year. Now, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to look at flooding properly with reference to planning now, because we are getting climate change. And I would like to propose, Mr. Chairman, we defer this application until we have a proper.
I want to hear the answer.
Sorry?
I want to hear the officer's answer.
Okay.
I can only go by the information that I'm given, and the LLFA have not objected to this in terms of flooding. The information that I have shows that the flooding occurs outside of the site, not in the site.
Okay, I'm going to go around the room, but I'm going to start with a follow-up to that from the chair. Am I right in thinking that in terms of the LFA have effectively said, you know, staying in situ is safe, and flooding was temporary, or you know, what have this commented at all on wider access as opposed to finally defined site access?
Safe access out of the site is potentially across into Martock rather than going through Cote.
Mr. Chairman, you couldn't get in or out of Martock in either December or November.
Okay, we said that already. Councillor Kelly. Questions for the officers? Councillor Hobhouse, do you have different questions.
So my bit, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Webb.
Yes, thank you. On rather the same point, how up to date is the report the officers had the flood risk assessment? I note that this report in front of us is starts with naming 2 councillors who haven't been councillors for some time. So I just wonder on when this report on the flooding was done, because quite rightly it would appear that we all know things have changed, and I'd just like to know when this report was done.
The names on the report, that's as an internal sort of error in terms of producing the report, and I think that's been looked into and rectified. This report was generated just over a week ago, so the report is current. The information from the LNFA was mid-2022.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to see a more recent flood risk plan, because I live outside a flood risk area. Yes, last month we were flooded, we had to put carpets up.
Thank you, Chairman. Just like to know, is there going to be a section 19 report generated for Martock? Because that is usually the report produced on major flooding incidents. That usually makes recommendations. I also know that one of the speakers said that the Internal Drainage Board were actually usually people to be taken very, very seriously on matters of water management on the levels, and Martock is covered by an IDB. They actually want a hydrological assessment of that particular Rhine because of the issues being generated before they give comment or endorse this. And yet there's no IDB comments in the report. Frankly, in the light of, as you say, recent events, I'm afraid I'd be quite happy to second Councillor Holthouse's report and endorse Councillor Bailey's suggestion that we actually defer this for further information, because I think it would be morally wrong of this committee to actually pass an application that potentially could be cut off and a site that maybe in future might even face some flood risk itself. Let's not forget the Barrow site, which, if you can indicate where that is, please, Colin, that actually physically flooded, and we were treated to pictures in the local media of people floating sailing boats on it. So we do know that that area does flood.
Would you like to respond at this point on the pluvial flooding issue, or are you going to go around with further questions?
I think, Chair, as a comment, the submissions that you've heard from the public have been quite technical in nature. Now, obviously, as Somerset Council, we do have technical teams within us. We're not having to go outside. So I recognise that there is some value in the request that Councillor Holthouse has made to actually see if we can have the LNFA, the Highways Officer, either virtually or in the meeting room, so that members can actually interrogate on particular issues. Because I'm conscious that the large majority of commentary made has been about technical rather than opinion and character.
Thank you. We'll just see if there are any other issues arising from the presentations. As well,
Can I just have clarity, please, on the scale that's on the buildings? I can't see it clearly from the bottom left-hand corner. Thanks.
500 metres. So that's 500 metres.
Yes, I can.
Question for the plan officer. You were talking about making these grass verges into footpaths.
with the active travel plans and all the rest of it, why are they not cycle paths? My first question.
You need convert to cycle paths rather than footpaths.
Everything we're doing around the Oval, around the Somerset and all that, anytime we get a chance, we're making people ride bikes and all this. But I noticed when you was going along, we're going to change all these grass verges into footpaths. Are we just ignoring bikes now and there's public travel?
This is connecting a footpath into existing footpaths. I think they're quite tricky to, unless you wanted to convert the whole footpath into a cycle path. I think that's quite a difficult thing to do.
But isn't that what we're doing in Diamond? Making the cycle paths. It's not debated here, but it is brought it up.
I think, Chairman, probably the issue is the length of frontage sufficient to encourage people to go off-road onto the path and then back on road, when in reality, that's probably about 20 seconds worth of cycling. I do actually cycle past it myself quite regularly. And I don't think it would occur to me to go and join a footpath or ride a footpath rather than just carry on the road. I take your point that we've got larger sites and we plan it in, but really, I suspect you probably need a longer frontage to actually attract people onto that alternative route.
The only reason I'm bringing it up is because we've got a small hamlet and making 100 houses potentially, and we should be encouraging them to cycle rather than to be bringing all the motor cars. However, forget that there. I noticed the visibility display in and out of that side is a metre short on it was a different application, but there's no reason it's small, only 7 metres.
In terms of removing the hedge, that's a 7 metre part of the hedge that is removed to create the access. The additional hedge isn't required to be taken out to create visibility displays along the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a little bit on water. It states in the report, from what I look in front of me, that no water will leave the site and it's supposed to be a study reported to the local planning authority or any work to take place. So that's what's put before me. So I believe that no water, if all the concrete is going to be put in all this housing and all that, no water will rush out onto the road. Is correct?
As part of the highways condition to prevent water coming off the site and onto the main road.
It's a local planning authority, as we said, to them to say this is being, you accepted, no water will come out of that side. That's what's in the report.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. The last question is about the badges. Is that fact or is it that no site will begin until we've got a proper report since you're only hearsay whether they can start?
That's part of the economic management plan that construction will take into account any badges, include any trenches dug will be covered over. Any badges falling in.
It will be, it's on your say so, correct? Go to number 18.
That condition requires to be discharged, yes.
Local planning policy will say you can't start until you're happy with fully badges not there or be moved. Okay, that's fine. Chair, thank you. Just questions?
So, seems to me that we have a number of members with concerns about the information on the hydrology of this summit, and that it might be that it would be advantageous in making a decision to understand, for example, the policy position with respect to wider access. Clearly, the officers have considered and reported upon access into and out of the site, onto the main road. But equally, it's pointed out, and the panel from the flood map and recent events, that the site itself is in a constrained area, should we say. There's also been a rather impassioned story about nearby flooding and the issue of potential betterment of the water course, which is adjacent to the edge of the site. There's some history there. So is there a specific proposal from the floor on as well as?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to propose a deferment until we have a up-to-date flood plan put before this committee before we consider the planning. Thank you.
Just before we go with that, I think that sort of implies that the flood plan we're using is not in date, and I don't think that, I think we've had officers say that's not the case, it is in date, but the point is we need a local flooding authority officer here on the council to actually explain and answer questions.
Fine, Mr. Chairman, if you want to phrase it like that. My problem is that the two flooding events happened on the beginning of November, the beginning of December this year, and they're not reflected in the plan.
And I think we need an LPO to explain why what we saw was not what appears on it.
If we're going to bring in that particular, can we ask the IDB to be here as well, please, to explain why they want to have a really look at this particular position from where it is on the levels.
Okay, can I just can you just bear with me while I just take a quick bit of advice from our legal officer? Okay, I'm going to make a proposal for the chair that we defer the decision on this matter because we feel we need additional local flood authority advice and ask officers to arrange for the earliest convenience to actually have a local flood authority officer to ask questions. I think I've covered the issues of wider access and betterment, and I suppose that includes the neighbour. Are there any other issues that we would want that officer to be prepared for? Oh, and also the currency of the maps, I suppose, is an issue. Are there any other issues which members will want specific advice on? Okay, Gary.
I'm a little bit concerned, just a point of definition. On page 100, we talk about the flood risk again, and it says that, let's have a look, shallow flooding along the western boundary with depths up to 900 millimetres. Now, I think 900 millimetres and shallow flooding shouldn't really be in the same sentence.
I think we'll ask the local flood authority on this as well. Okay, so I'm proposing this from the chair that we defer the decision until a future meeting. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Can I ask for a show of those in favour of deferring this decision? Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm afraid arguments are well made. We do need an expert in the room, which is, I think, leaves us of the item 1804-057 out was withdrawn. The appeal decision, we have 4 appeal decisions in the agenda, which excuse me, meeting's still going on. We have 4 appeal decisions which are in the agenda, which are just denoting. Can I assume those are noted? Thank you. Very good. In that case, I'll close the meeting. Thank you very much for your forbearance today, and I wish you all a very happy Christmas. Prosperity. Where we're going.